All right, we might get started. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for taking time today to join the webinar. My name is Trevor Fairweather, and I'm the General Manager at ReadyTech, part of the ReadyTech group. Really excited today to be joined by Scott Dickinson, who's our National Manager for MyProfiling, also within the ReadyTech group. Like many of you today, you're probably, I imagine, joining the webinar from home. So I myself am running the webinar from home in my makeshift office. So if you do happen to see or hear, probably more so, any footsteps in the background, any kids, that sort of thing. So that'll be my kids in the background. So please bear with us for any background noise. Hopefully we should be able to run the webinar pretty smoothly today. Today's session is all about helping you get online and get online really quickly. Yeah, really excited to be able to have Scott join and showcase our MyProfiling product and how that can really help you move online really quickly. I'm sure many of you have joined a lot of our webinars in the past. They're really designed to be interactive. There is a Q&A panel in the webinar. So throughout today's session, if you do have any questions, please fire them through in the Q&A panel, and we'll aim to answer them throughout the session. Before we jump straight into the webinar, I just wanted to quickly touch on the environment that we're in, and I'm sure you've all heard the words before that we're living in unprecedented times. It's really becoming such an understatement now, so I won't really labour the point. We do recognise that some of our clients in the sector is doing it quite tough at the moment, and we really just wanted to put on this webinar and a range of other webinars to let you know that we're here to help. We have launched what we call our remote control initiative, and it's here to help you move your workforce remotely, and also in the same guise try to give you some control of how you do it. So today is really the beginning of a series of a number of webinars that we're going to be running. We also have a lot of resources and content, and we're aiming to have a dedicated website set up also with a lot of the information that we'll cover today, as well as in some of the future webinars, so access to webinar recordings and guides and that sort of things. So we're aiming to be here to help. We understand it's a bit of a difficult period to navigate at the moment. So please work with us and talk to us as you navigate through the situation yourself, and reach out if we can do more to help. So I'll now hand over to Scott. As I mentioned before, today's session is all about how you can get your learning online. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Scott.
Thank you, Trevor. Good morning or good afternoon, guys. Thank you all for joining. So what I'm going to be showing you today is the MyProfiling solution. Now, a few of you may have already seen this in the past, but you're going to be seeing some exciting new developments that we've actually released, which is our learning management system. There's been a significant amount of work that's gone into the product to actually assist you guys to pick up your learning resources and get them into an e-learning format, quick and easy, so to speak. So I'm just going to share my screen, so just bear with me. So what I'm going to focus on in today is we're going to have just a really quick run through of a couple of the key sections that aren't related to the LMS, because they are integrated to a degree. So we're going to be spending a couple of minutes just going through the different extensions so I can explain what they are. And then what we are going to do from there is go through, and we are going to go through and actually add content to the LMS. We're going to be adding course materials, we're going to be creating questions, and I'm going to be showing you how this displays at the student perspective. So let's get started with this journey. So before I get started, for those of you that aren't aware, this is a completely cloud-based solution, so no installation of software is required or anything like that. The system does run on all browsers, but I highly do recommend Chrome and Firefox. They're always the best to work with. But we also do have a mobile app. Now, the mobile app is being used for profiling and different aspects such as site visits and stuff like that. But, within, by May this year, we're actually going to have the LMS within the mobile app itself, which is so exciting from our perspective. So what I'm going to do is log in as a student to begin with. Now, students can view what you give them access to. It's up to you. It's your decision as the RTO what is made available on a per student basis or at a system level. So you've got a lot of control, so to speak. So when I log in as this student, there's a couple of key items that I do want to show you guys, as I said before I get into the LMS. So from this student, this is a mechanical engineering student. So this is from the MEM training package. Now, we've already got over 200 qualifications mapped in the system, and we've got hundreds more that are available for selection to use within the LMS as well. So where I'll start is with the beginning with recognition of prior learning. This is tied into the LMS, and I'll explain how. So, most RTOs I talk to, even the TAFEs I talk to, a lot of them work with very large booklets. We call them RPL kits, but, they're a mammoth task for students to go through. From your perspective, instead of having to organise massive amounts of information that gets sent over to them, or having to receive massive portfolios where you go through everything, it's a simple 6-step wizard. This is about to be 7 steps, so stay tuned to this channel. But you as an RTO, you can come in here and provide the ability where the students can update their account details. They can put in their employment history, so what is relevant for the qualification that they're applying for. Put in their work experience, so what employers did I do what with. Now, for those of you who have not seen the system yet, this work experience profile is completely skills-based. Each of these are categories. Categories are subject areas of a similar nature, and underneath each of those is what we call an activity. These activities are mapped to the performance skills and the performance criteria for the units of competency that student is studying. So as a student, I go through and I tell you what my experience is per employer. Now you go through this entire process where the student is recording exactly what they've done, with whom and when. So we're looking at an automotive example here. And what they do is they hit save. Now we build this for you. This is made available to you guys straight away as soon as you jump onto the MyProfiling system. From there, we get the work experience validation. So a student can actually print off a report, hand that to a supervisor, get them to sign off on it and upload it back in. Or they can email that off to that supervisor, and it turns everything that they've done in step 3 into what we call a third-party report. From there, you have the ability to embed your own knowledge questions. Now, this is tied in with the LMS. So this is what I'm going to be going through with you guys today. So as part of this, when you're building content into the LMS, you can also be building out your RPL kit at the exact same moment. It's two birds, one stone, as they say. You also have the ability at the student level to upload content, so supplementary evidence, portfolios, certificates, the usual kind of things that we get from an RPL application. But the biggest difference is when you're working with the LMS, you can actually dictate the type of assessment evidence you want per unit of competency. This is a new feature. So what this means is, say, if we're delivering a certificate for on project management, I might want to request a racing matrix, a project plan, a risk matrix, like the list goes on. You've got the ability to do that now, and that's all part of the LMS as well. So let's quickly go back home. From there, we've also got your digital training plans. These are quite important. Now, the good thing is a lot of the data that is in your systems comes straight into the training plan here. Units, start dates, end dates, delivery modes, assessment methodologies. It's everything that you would expect in your training plans. These are really important because in the training plan section, whether it is for user choice or something different, it is the start dates and end dates that actually dictate when units are made available or when they're due for completion within the LMS. The training plan becomes what it's meant to be, and that is the source of truth. So that actually dictates when units are available to the students, and this will make more sense as we get into that side of the system. From there, we've also got profiling. For those of you who have not seen it, this is the skills component of the solution. Many of us who have worked in user choice over, the last couple of decades, we've all worked with training logs. The problem is with training logs is that A, you're usually receiving it later than when you need it. B, it's usually incomplete when you've received it. And C, it's too late for you to do anything really. You can't do anything with old data. You can't do anything live with it. From a student perspective, I can log in via my app on my mobile phone, whether that's Apple or Android. I can come in here at the end of my day or when I've completed a particular task, and this is really up to what you tell your students, and I can record the activities that I've done today. So for this example, I did computing skills today. I select which ones I've done. If I hold down any of the items, I can actually upload supplementary evidence to prove what I've done. So this could be photos, this could be video. There is, from a student's perspective, they could do that directly from their mobile phone and embed it against each of the activities. They can also upload multiple items per activity. We can also state how many times we've done this today if it's a repetitive task. If anyone out there is in retail, obviously you wouldn't want a student to record every single time a point of sale equipment's been used. That will be a little unpractical for them. So the student goes through and selects what they've done for the day. These categories, they're based on the qualification that you've undertaken. So we've got everything from CHC to SIT, CPC. There's a very long list of different qualifications that are available to you guys as RTOs. From here, we go next. We go to what we call concurrent activities. These concurrent activities, they are repetitive items that appear throughout the units themselves. So throughout the performance criteria, so to speak. So a great example could be using PPE, could be using tools and materials. It could be follow emergency procedures. Hopefully you don't see that one too often. But, it's the generic stuff that happens throughout all the units that you're working with. If we go next, what we do next is quite important. So we have to give it a task name. Now, I promise you guys that majority of your students will be happy to leave it as task 1, task 2, task 3. Happens all the time. But there's some sectors in particular where job card numbers go in, for example. You could tell the student you need more information than a task name, so you could search for this a little bit better. It's up to you guys on the instructions you give those students. We could actually say the amount of time that has occurred with this, whether it's done on the job, or off the job simulated, so done with the RTO, the day in the week where it was done, the supervision level, and they can put in contemporaneous notes. Now, this is really important from our perspective, and I'll show you why later. But what this ends up with is a list of activities that gets verified by supervisors on the site. So I can hand my mobile phone over to a supervisor if I've got different supervisors every day, like so, and capture those signatures. If not, it's just a matter of finalising your week, sending that off to the supervisor or the trainer who validate and approve it. What happens with this data is it goes into unit profiles, just like so. So give it a moment to load. And what we're going to see is all recorded activity from a practical perspective against each unit or competency. Now, remember, each unit we're working with, each training package we're working with has a skills component. We need to track this information where these skills are being actually practiced prior to assessment, so to speak. So what you can see here in dark blue, anything done on the job, anything light blue is done in a simulated environment. We have the capacity for benchmarking hours and customizing those for you. So if you tell us that for this unit we need to see 30 hours, we can set that as the benchmark for you. We drill down into the individual activities of the entire unit or competency where we can see all unit progression from the skills base. Now, this is all validated evidence. This is all being sent to the supervisors. This is all being sent to the trainers and assessors. So this handles your formatted skills acquisitions, so to speak. And that's what this is trying to achieve. And the LMS finishes off the picture, so to speak. So I'll quickly explain what I mean by that. If I go to enrollment summary, loading, loading, loading. Not loading, I'll log in as a different login. Bear with me. All right, I'm now logged in as the RTO and not the student. So if I go to this student and go enrollment summary, what I'm going to see is a visualization of data. I'm going to see total qualifications, total skills progression, total theory progression, and employer sign-off progression, so to speak. What we have here is the ability to track all practical skills acquisition and all underpinning knowledge acquisition. So painting the picture for two sides of that same coin, your skills progress as well as your theory progress. So let's go into the LMS now, and I'm going to show you what this looks like from a student perspective. So students, they can view the system via a browser, as I said before. So let's just go in, and I'm going to go to this student here. You notice that the icons here are different from the student than the previous one we looked at. As I said before, you can tailor what each student has access to. If I select learning and assessment, many of you will recognize this old view that have been exposed to the system, so to speak. We have now updated this system to this brand new LMS. So this has been a lot of work to this date. So you're going to find a lot of this is highly customizable. So I'm going to see qualification progression. I'm going to see content progression. I'm going to see assessment progression. I'm going to see assessments that are due or overdue. I'm going to see my total course activity over the period of time. But more importantly, if I go down to a unit or competency, I'm going to see start and end dates. Now you notice here there is a start date, but there isn't an end date for the student. So the student's been given access with a start date, but the RTO did not provide the end date. So it's open for them indefinitely until they finish it. If I go get started, we get taken to this view. In this view, this is our wireframe for the LMS itself. In the past, this was just a simple clipboard where you'll go through your content, but now this is a complete wireframe where all of your content, whether it's your checklists, your assessments, they are all directly embedded there. Now, this is meant to be quite intuitive for the student to work through. We have different dots which marry up to the different menu items, and this is where we get our progression in terms of content in the previous screen. I can see all the questions, I can see my responses, but can everyone notice this? This page requires access to your camera. On my system, and you could do this on your system as well, we have authenticity sorted. So what this means is when your students are working with a webcam, or working with the assessment tool, so to speak, they need to give permission, their webcam gets turned on, and it will take photos of them randomly as they're working on the assessment items. This is to assist with proving that that student is actually doing the work. And we actually built that in consultation with one of the TAFEs who got that from audit. So, you know, it's about embedding your content here in an easily digestible format. So you could do anything from written word to checklists to further assessments. You can add videos, you can add photos. It's really up to you guys what goes in. And what I'm going to be showing you guys today is how do we get this content in? How easy is this to work with? Now, a lot of you who have worked with LMSs in the past will be familiar with what we call SCORM content. I've worked with SCORM in the past, and look, it's a speciality. You need to understand how these tools work, and particularly if you're working with a tool like Articulate, which is a great tool, don't get me wrong, but it takes time to learn that, and it takes time to actually build those resources up so you can actually hit the ground running. So what we do from our perspective is actually get the content that is in your learner guides, that is in your assessment questions. We can even use your moderation guides, your marking guides for your trainers and assessors. And this is what you make available to your students. So you might be asking, how do we do that? So let's get out of this screen. I'm just going to log out of this student, and I'm going to log in as an RTO admin. So you guys will have access to this at no cost, this access, this level of access. So as an administrator, we do not charge you for administrators at all, by the way, even outside of this offer during this period of time. As an administrator, you have full control over the system. You can actually dictate what tools you work with, what you don't. It's quite a flexible tool once you get used to working around the control panel, so to speak. But with the assessment tool, let's go here. You as an admin can actually set the preferences whether or not trainers have the right to edit content. Now, this is always a point of contention no matter who I'm talking to. Some RTOs want their trainers to have access to, while some RTOs emphatically say no, we do not want that, we do not want to give them that right. It's up to you. You can actually dictate those rules, so to speak. So the way this system works is it's based around a mapping matrix. Many of you guys would have seen this already. So if I go to a unit of competency, let's have a look at this one. Provide food services. Hopefully there's something there. Not that much, but that's okay. Here at this unit level, what we're seeing is an assessment matrix. Now, all of the assessment questions, all of the activities, all of the checklist items that you build are made available directly against each unit of competency. This is, this is all about tracking your validation. As we're building this stuff, I'm going to show you guys how we can check our mappings, and we can even look for gaps as well. So the question is, how do you start building your content? So if I go to add new assessment item, we've got a few options here. Now, in the past, we had a list of probably 5 different question types, and we've been extending these over the past 6 months, and we're going to continue building these as the need comes up as well. So you've got multiple choice questions, match-up questions, written response questions, RPO observation checklists, you've got regular checklists, you've got list questions, exact answer questions, file upload questions, video response questions, and embed video response. So just to provide an explanation of a couple of these, just because a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory. A good example of a list question could be give me 5 examples of PPE that you could be working with. And you put down 5 examples here. So you type in your question, or you go to a Word document and you find your question, and I'm just going to pull up an example here from a question that I have here. Cut, paste, and you're done. You can cut and paste all of your question types, all of your answers, everything that you have in Word documents straight away. So that works for all question types, whether it's multiple choice, match-up questions, written response questions, it's up to you guys. So that's an example of a list question. If I go in and do exact answer, a great example could be convert 2 km to centimetre. Now, this is something that a lot of LMSs can be tricky with, because you could get an answer where they put the answer in as 200 centimetre or 200 gap centimetre. And depending on the way you set that up, one or the other is going to be automatically incorrect. So you as a user, you just put in the number, and we've got a long list of different values here. So this will automatically mark the answers for those students based on what they enter. Now, auto marking occurs with multiple choice questions, match-up questions, and the list questions as well. So it's all about trying to make this as easy as possible for you guys that we can. So when you're creating your content, not only are you cutting and pasting from your Word docs or any other document types that you're working with now, you have the ability of mapping it. So if, say it's a multiple choice question, and I go to the unit and I go, this is for the unit CHC, just because we're looking at a CHC unit before. We drag everything in from CGA. We've got an integration with it. So I look for the unit or competency that this applies to, and I select either the elements or the performance criteria that it applies to. I can even select the knowledge components or the skills that it addresses to. This goes to that unit matrix that I was showing you guys before. So the work that has happened here makes this easier for you guys because you're mapping as you're creating the content. So you do this for question by question. Now I'm just going to explain just the last two items because these are brand new here, actually last three items I should say. The first one is a file upload question. So the file upload question works both in the LMS and also works by RPL. So what this means is you could actually say, give me an example of your policy and procedures, and the student next to that question can upload all of that policy and procedures, so to speak. It's really up to you guys. You could also make a file available via that. So with one of my clients in the last couple of weeks, they gave me a massive spreadsheet that they wanted me to embed into that student view. It was much easier for us to actually provide it as an upload where the student can download, complete it, and upload it back in. And you can do that here as well. To go from there, we've also got the video response questions. So you might be asking, what is a video response question? So instead of asking a written question where they have to type out everything, you can ask your question here. And what the student will have in their view is the ability to record their answers by their webcam. So this turns a question that would normally be written into something that could be captured orally. You can, with all of our question types, you see underneath here, you've got the ability to embed your responses. This is in every single question type you're working with. So, multiple choice, if this is the correct answer, you select it there. Every single time you are building your questions, let's go written response, you're embedding your answers. This becomes available to your trainers and assessors as they are marking off the content. I hope that makes sense. So, we're building a bank. We've got multiple choice questions, we've got exact matching questions, we've got written response questions. It's now time to pull these together to create your individual assessment tools, whether they're formative or whether they're summative. You could do both through this approach, so to speak. So what we need to do is go back to what we call our assessment matrix. So let's pull up a unit, and I'm going to find a unit that was there before. This one has a lot against it, so I know we've got content there. So if I go to this unit here, I can see a whole host of different question types that I've created. So what I need to do to add a new assessment is add a new column, and that becomes available on the right. You give it a name, so let's call this example 28 because I've lost count over the last couple of days. That will save. And the next step is to actually, what is it? Is it an assessment quiz? Is it a self-assessment quiz? Is it a checklist? What is it that we're pulling together? So if I go assessment quiz and I go loading and go back here to the right and go create assessment quiz, every question that I've created for this becomes automatically available. It's a matter of selecting from the pool which questions you've created that become available to that unit. So there's one thing I will point out here. So if I untick that and I scroll to the bottom of that screen, you'll see that I've got the performance criteria listed here. Anything highlighted has not been addressed by this assessment tool yet. If I scroll up and tick all of those items, you'll see that I've now addressed it. It is available there. Now, what we've got with this as well is the ability for you to generate a mapping PDF. Oops, you've got to love that in a demo site, but it will generate it for you as a PDF so you can make it available for audit. But even an assessment PDF becomes available as well. So this is, you don't have to recreate the wheel, so to speak. If you've created the content in the LMS, we're making it available in the PDF for those students that cannot access it. So a lot more work's going into that PDF, so there's a lot more to be seen there very, very soon. But let's go back here. So once I've done that, I hit save, and it goes across, and I'll be able to see, for example, 28, all of the items that I've brought through and all of the mapping. Now, you'll notice on the left-hand side that I've got all of the elements and the performance criteria. I will always be able to see that. If I go show PDF, we've got this in a PDF view as well, where we've got it all broken down for you, so you can print it off or you can make it available for anyone as well. On this screen, you've also got the ability to add images. These images are important because they become available to the student in these views. You are customizing the look of the LMS on a per unit basis. So from here, the next step is creating content. So say we've built our LMS, and if I go LMS, I can see a lot that's been created here. Now, we've got assessments that we've created, so I can add assessment from that matrix and select that. So if I select that assessment example quiz there, it says auto progression. So what that means is the student needs to complete the content in the LMS prior to starting this. But what I can also do is actually dictate when it's due. So is it 4 days after the start date? Is it 4 months, 4 years? You can actually set these rules at the assessment level. That way, as each of your students get put into the system, their start and end dates become the source of truth, and the system applies everything universally per assessment item. So you can choose to use that, or you could choose not to. That is up to you guys. So if you let that blank, it's open for as long as that student needs access to, or until you archive that account. That's up to you guys. From here, we also have the ability to embed not only our assessments, but our checklists. We can also create forms for you guys as well. There's a lot that we can do here. So let's start with content creation. So if I go add file, I could simply choose to upload items. So I can make available PowerPoints, I can make available PDFs, whatever you guys want to do with that. The alternative is, if you do not want to just make your learner guide available, what you can do is just go into your learner guides, and I'm just going to show you an example of this now. So if I'm in this learner guide here, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm just going to go context of learning here as an example, and I am going to go paste, copy, paste. You can embed URLs, you can embed photos, you can do a whole heap of different things with this. So it's a matter of just choosing the best way to structure the content so it's easily digestible in the student view. But you can edit here as well. So what I could do is change the text color. So if I select that, loading, loading, loading. You could do other things. You can make things bold. You can put things in italics. You can add images. You could do a whole heap of different things here. And it's a matter of just going save. That part's done. So that's just gone to the bottom here. Now, what I could do is put that at the top, and that is now the first thing that that student can access before they go through the rest of the content. So I could do that section by section, or I could simply just go add file, choose file, and I'm going to make available any other document that I have within my system. So that could be that PDF, or that could be that learner guide, and I could just call it learner guide. And what I could do here is go select the below to access the learner guide. I can even add an image with that if I wanted to as well. The point is we're trying to make this as simple as we can. So not only can you cut and paste from Word, you can embed images, you could also embed URLs. So a lot of our learner guides that we work with, we always provide access or links to, legislation websites, regulator websites, WorkHub is a great example. You can embed these directly in the content with whatever descriptions or information you want to add with that as well. That becomes available to that student. You can also embed your videos, as I showed you before with the assessment questions. If you add a URL this way, you can also embed things like your videos from, YouTube, Vimeo, all of that kind of stuff. You can embed those directly in. What this is attempting to do is just make this so quick and easy so you don't have to play around with it. It's just getting the content in. So if I close that, we've also got the ability to add assessments, which is what I showed you guys before, but also add your checklists. So people often ask me what are the different uses of the checklist in the system. So, the usual examples that most people go to straight away is a final observation. Now, obviously, at times like this, that might not be as easy to actually do unless you're doing it online or via Skype or something along those lines. But you could use these for, self-assessments. You can use them for student declarations. It's up to you because we captured signatures on those checklists as well, and I'll show you what one of those looks like. We also have the ability here to, on your behalf, if you have complex forms that are part of your assessments, we can actually build these for you. So if I save that and go preview and go to this risk matrix, we can actually build out quite comprehensive forms that could be embedded directly into that site for you as well. And look, we tend to knock those off very, very quickly for you as well. So, there's a lot of examples on how you could actually use that. So let's go back to the matrix. Everything we are doing is against the unit. Now, you also have the ability to cluster as well. So by clustering, we have the ability of grouping units of competencies of a similar nature. And many of you do this. I used to do this a lot in the past as well. So we select the qualification that this applies to. We give it a cluster name. So this could be example cluster, just because I'm not very creative today. We can select the qualification. So say this is SIT. Cert 3 in hospitality. I can look for a qualification template this applies to, and I can even select the units of competency from that qualification template that this applies to. This means not only can you create content on a per unit basis and map that in the matrix, you could actually go to a cluster matrix, and I'm just going to go to an example cluster here in my demo site, where we can actually add assessments directly against that or build the assessment content against that cluster. So, if I go add file here, I might want to do the exact same cut and paste. So I do a copy. I'm just going to copy that from my Word document. And let's just call this introduction. You could do this for the cluster as well as the individual unit. I could do this for assessments. So this could be a VR assessment that's coming as an example, or this could be any other type of assessment that you've got built in. So this could be days, this could be weeks, this could be months, or this could be years. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with this is make this as flexible as we can, because every training package is different and every provider approaches this differently. So in terms of setting this up, it's a matter of just going through those preferences with you and just making sure we've got the correct items ticked in your configuration, and the rest is just getting that data in. It's just building those assessment items. It's building the individual pages. It is choosing the structure of the individual pages, making sure everything is in the right area that it needs to be. And as soon as it's done, all you need to do is hit publish, and then every student that's under that qualification with that start and end date will automatically have access. You also have the ability to do that manually, and that's where I'm going to show you as well, because you might not want to rely on that, on those start and end dates. Everybody's different. So if I go to an example student list here, so I'm in as an RTO admin, so this is a pure demo site. So I could filter students by, say, unit competency. So instead of relying on the start and end dates, I might look for SIT, and it's always going to do that to me with those examples. Oh, I haven't got that set up here, that's why. There you are. No? Yes? Excellent. So I'm going to pick up students that have access to that, and I'm going to be able to actually give them access to the LMS via that. Alternatively, if I go to students, I could do this on a one-by-one basis and go to this certificates for in carpentry and go manage LMS and assessments. So here I can see this student's progress through absolutely everything. Everything is color-coded. So I can see what's been submitted, I can see what they're working on right now, I can see what they have access to. It's as simple as ticking on or ticking off on a unit basis if you want to make something available early or you want to do that without utilising the training plan side of it. You can do that in bulk as I showed you before. Now, this is an example of the checklist that you can actually build in the system. You have major items and you have minor items underneath this. I typically refer to this as what's been assessed and these as the rubrics that you're marking off against as you're going through them with that student, so to speak. But it's quite a flexible tool. You can even embed your own instructions directly into it as well. From an RTO perspective, you've always got access to every single submission that's been made. According to the color coding here, I'll be able to see what the student has submitted, what they're working on, what's been completed as satisfactory, and what has been marked as not satisfactory, as you can see there. So if I go to this summative assessment for this student, I'll be able to see exactly what they've responded with and with the marking guides. Every single time something's been submitted, you can reopen it back to the student if it's incorrect. They can reopen it and they can work through those items yet again. It's really up to you guys to work out what rules are most appropriate for what you're trying to achieve with your students, and we help you with that. Also too, if we were looking at this from a trainer view, I would see the student's images underneath this, actually showing me the authenticity of that user as they've submitted it. Let's scroll back up. So just to rehash, we've gone through the LMS. I've shown you what the view is like from the student. I've shown content development. I've shown the mapping side of the system as well. I guess what's really is next is making sure that when content's getting added in, it appears the way that it needs to, that you're happy with the layout. So the easiest way to do that is just set yourself up with a demo account, and we'll set that up with you, where you're going to be able to log in as a student and walk through this UI. You'll be able to see all of your content there. You're going to be able to see every single question. You're going to be able to see all of your written content, your photos, your videos. Everything's going to be aligned there for you to work with. It's all about getting this up and going quickly and easily. So that's it from the LMS perspective. Now, I did have in mind to keep a couple of minutes up for questions and answers. Trevor, are you still there, mate?
Yeah, I'm here, Scott. We've got quite a plethora of questions.
Okay.
Are you happy to take questions now?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'll just run through the list that we've got here. So, question from Peggy around RPL. The email that is sent to the employer for the validation report, is that a URL? And when completed by the employer, is submitted back to the portal. These guys use a similar system with JR now, but they've got some issues with the URL. So just wanted to clarify just in terms of how that process works in MyProfiling. I think we're muted there, Scotty. Can you hear us now?
Hello, Trev. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Did you catch the question?
No, I missed that question. I'm sorry. We just had a bit of a glitch there for a moment. I'm back.
No worries. Question was just in regards to RPL. and the email that's sent to the employer for the validation report.
Yep.
Is it a URL? And when completed by the employer, is it submitted back to the portal?
Absolutely. It's a yes to both of those. So it's an email that gets sent to that supervisor with a URL, and it opens up a dedicated link for that student, for that supervisor. As soon as that's submitted back into the system, it automatically updates the validation report, so to speak. Once that's happened and it comes back to the RTO, you actually next have another step where you can actually choose whether or not to accept it. Because let's face it, if someone signed off on it, they might not be qualified to do that. So you've got that final step where you could do that as well.
All right, fantastic. There are quite a few questions just in terms of the qualifications that are in the system. So do you mind just maybe talking broadly about the number of qualifications that are mapped within the system?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got over 200 qualifications available now. We work with a very long list of different training packages. We've got everything from meat services to construction, community services, hospitality and cookery, even hair and beauty. The list really goes on. And look, we're always adding to that list, so to speak. So we're always building in new qualifications from a profiling perspective, but we're also, replacing superseded qualifications as well, and that's part of our standard service, so to speak. I think what might be a good idea, Trev, is at the end of this, we might be able to send out a bit of a list that has the current list of all qualifications that are available.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. There's quite a number of specific questions around the qualifications, so that would be great.
No problem.
Another question, just in terms of where the data is hosted, just in regards to whether the data is hosted in an Australian data centre.
Oh, absolutely. So it's on AWS in Sydney.
All right. Fantastic. Question from Fee in regards to being able to access an enrolment summary.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible?
Absolutely. So it's a preference under the control panel. So that could be turned on or turned off as needed. You can do that if you already have access to the system. If not, you could always give me a call and we could turn that on for you. That's no issue at all.
No, fantastic, mate. And another question from Fee in regards to the new assessment types and the for assessment questions. Are they only available when you create new questions?
No, they're available to everyone at the moment. So it's just another configuration that's in the control panel, because this is a lot of the questions are pretty brand new. So it's just a setting against the control panel against assessment where we just turn it on, where you get that full list from there.
All right, fantastic. Another question, just in regards to if you have a question that is linked to multiple units, say it's 5 units, and the student answers this particular question as part of a unit they are doing and gets it correct, will it also make that correct in the other units it's linked to?
Yes.
Enrolled to all 5. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, great. Couple of questions in terms of, is it suitable for single units of competency?
Absolutely. So in the past, that wasn't the case, and that was probably one of my biggest considerations when we were updating the UI. So it's a matter of just setting up the qualification, whether it's like the qualification template, whether it's 1 unit or a skill set, so to speak, so maybe 5 units. And the rest is easy from there. It's what you'll see from the student view is, instead of seeing a long list of different units to choose from, they'll only see 1. And the start and end date that applies to that, that's it. So aside from that, yeah, very, very easy to work with.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scotty. Few questions just in terms of, other LMSs, learning management systems and student management systems, and in terms of the student portal view. Just maybe talking about a bit about how that works, because I think some of the audience have got some questions around if I've got an existing kind of student experience through a separate portal, how does MyProfiling work in that instance?
Well, there's two ways we could go about that. Like it's you know, it's always the interesting conversation when we're talking about completely separate systems, so to speak, and trying to unify it. What many providers have done is made the available link to MyProfiling available in their student portals as examples. So, you know, we could do that with VetTrack or vice versa, or Job Ready, so to speak. You know, we could do that straight away where you make that link available. The biggest step is that we're working towards SSO, and it's not available today, but it is going to be available in June this year. So we actually have that build on its way at the moment, which is going to make that process 10 times better. But, you know, from the perspective of that student journey, so to speak, they're going to be in your portals. They can select the link that goes to MyProfiling, and that will take them to that dashboard that I was showing you guys before.
Great, thanks, Scotty. Question about practical assessments.
Yep.
I think just general question around whether MyProfiling can cater for practical assessments.
Well, it does from an observational perspective. So those checklists that I showed you guys before, that is designed for a practical overview of exactly what that student's doing. Now, obviously, that's a lot trickier in the current environment where you can't sit face to face. You can't even be in the same room in some instances to do this in bulk. So, you know, it might be easier to actually use those checklists in collaboration with something like Zoom, Skype, something like that, and actually record it. Because not only could you record what they're doing, you could actually mark off the checklist to that as well. The student at all points in time can also upload video evidence, whether that's with profiling or against the assessment component as well, so against the LMS. So there's multiple points of entry where additional video contents, they could provide that to you. You could use one of the checklists to actually mark off against that as well. So I have seen people do that before, and that actually works quite well. It does work quite well.
Great. Question in terms of, is there a way to record reasonable adjustment accommodations for assessments?
Reasonable adjustments. Now that's an interesting one. So, you know, that's a very vet specific question there. So the way I address reasonable adjustment is I create separate assessment types based on the scenarios, so to speak. So, you know, I showed you guys before how you can create an assessment tools that is standard, that applies to all students. You could also make available other assessment tools that only be used when you want to make them available. So if a student can't complete the standard tool, for example, you could use video response questions where they use their webcam to record all of their responses because they don't have their LLM skills to report or to submit answers like the rest of the student body, so to speak. It's a matter of working through the tools and seeing exactly what you have to date and visualizing those and making them available to your training team and making sure that they understand what to make available and when to make that available. That is the key, because there is no limit on the type of assessments that you can bring in. It's a matter of just making sure everyone's on the same page when that's made available to your student cohorts. I hope that answers that question.
Cool. Thanks, Scotty. Few more here. Can you embed PowerPoint files into MyProfiling?
We can as images. So you know, that's there are tools like I forget what it's called, Slidecast or something like that, where you could do that in the past. It was one of the bigger items that was being shown through the Australian Flexible Learning Framework many years ago. But you know, we don't have the ability to embed the whole file, but you can embed the individual images as individual screens, if that makes sense. So you can upload it as an image, and that image will appear on each slide as that student goes through the content. Alternatively, you can also upload the whole PDF itself and make that available for download, but I don't think that's as nice of an experience as embedding it into the individual slides of the LMS. But you have both options there.
Cool, thanks, Scott. There's a statement here in terms of students would still have to do work cover assessment face-to-face though. Do you know what they might be referring to here?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's a practical observation or something like that. I'm assuming that's associated with white card and high risk items like that. Look, obviously you would have to have your own social distancing rules and all that kind of stuff that applies to that. Maybe I was a little too generic in what I said before. Like, you can use your observation checklist and actually record what's going on with those as well when you're in that one-to-one situation with those students. The observation tool is used, like the checklists are built for that purpose. When I'm actually working with those checklists as well, typically I have a mobile phone going. I could record any conversations, of course, with the student's permission, but I could also record video and upload it right next to the checklist. So it's actually there for record keeping purposes as well. You could do that too.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. A question in regards to clustered units and what if they fall across multiple qualifications? Say you import a unit from elsewhere and want to cluster that with that one with a named elective.
Yep, that's fine. That's a non-issue. So 99% of our clients all import units at some point or another. It's a matter of just setting it up in what we call a qualification template. It's like your scope in your VetTrack or your job ready instance, basically. It sets the rules of what electives or cores are allowable for that program, so to speak. Once we get them in there, you're going to have no issue for it. Now, every now and again, when a person does add an imported unit, they might say, hang on, I can't find it. All you need to do is send me a quick email, say, hey, Scotty, we can't see this unit here. I add that to that qualification in the back end for you, and you'll have it within a couple of minutes, and you'll be able to cluster and do whatever you need to with that.
All right, fantastic. Might just do one more question. And any of the questions, guys, that have come through today that we haven't been able to answer live, we'll do. We'll send a list of all of the questions and answers so everyone can see the responses to each of the questions. But one final one from Ruth, can you upload traditional e-learning content to this, like storyline files?
No. So we're non-SCORM compliant. So this, to date, this system has been about taking learner guides and the basic tools and actually making that digitalized, so to speak. No, we don't take that content and import that back in. That is on our roadmap, but it is not available today, so to speak. We would expect, like we were talking about this one not too long ago, Trev, we were hoping to have this done within the next calendar year, so to speak.
Yeah. No worries. And maybe one last one. Are we able to use non-accredited training products?
Yes, we can definitely do that for you. So it's a matter of structuring the non-accredited components to make it mirror what is in a unit on competency. There needs to be the same kind of logic behind it. Basically, what I get you to do is to put it into a spreadsheet for me. We upload that in the back end and we create all of the content for you, or we create all what we will call units or modules or whatever vernacular you would like to use. And that way it works the exact same way as units of competency in the LMS. All
right, fantastic. Well, thanks again, everyone, for all of your questions. We'll finish up the questions here, just conscious of time because we're getting close to finish time. So just quickly wanted to touch on, obviously as part of our remote control initiative, we've got a series of other webinars that are coming up over the next couple of weeks. So you'll continue to receive regular emails from us promoting each of these webinars. Again, they're really designed just to try and help you move your business online if you're not, and help with any elements of remote work. So tomorrow we've got a webinar with Kerry Buttery from Vet Nexus and the Vet Gurus, and she'll talk to you about the practical steps for taking your learning online, but importantly, whilst kind of thinking about the compliance elements. And then we've got a range of other webinars around online enrollments and choosing the right e-learning tool for your business. And then if you are already starting to deliver online, we've got a session around how you arm your trainers to succeed in a digital setting. So obviously delivering in an online world is much different to face-to-face, and there's some nuances around that. So so our goal over this period is just to run a whole raft of different information sessions for our joint ReadyTech clients to help you navigate through this period. So big thanks to Scotty for demonstrating the product today. Thanks everyone for your time and attending. Great to get so many questions and interaction. We'll make sure that we answer all those questions and get back to you shortly. We'll also make the recording available to anyone that wasn't able to join today as well. So, and we'll be in touch after the webinar should you want to start to move forward with taking on the MyProfiling product. So, yeah, you'll hear from us shortly. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of the day and stay safe.